Marandasya Ganagana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pasachadi Sadhari. Hare Krishna. So today we're doing a little review. I hope that you're all ready to speak a little bit. Doesn't have to be a long dissertation. It shouldn't be. So of course we're doing a review of Bhagavad-Gita, but it doesn't mean there's going to be a big test or anything like that, because this is not that kind of subject matter. What should have happened as a result of studying the 5 subjects of Bhagavad Gita is that all of us should have had some realizations, some way in which in our heart we changed a little bit. That's the beginning of change in the heart. A lot of people actually think they've undergone dramatic transformation in their life, and they've undergone some transformation, but then a few years later, they can see that the change was not as dramatic as what they thought. So in Krishna consciousness, we want the change to be from the heart. And the change in the heart begins with transcendental sound vibration. So one of the first topics that we discussed was why Arjuna was chosen for receiving Bhagavad Gita from Lord Krishna. Well, actually, Krishna tells Arjuna, he said, because you are my friend and my devotee, and because you are never envious of me. So those are the 2 qualifications. Actually, not being envious of Krishna should come first, especially for a conditioned soul. We may not be a great devotee, we may not be on the level of being Krishna's friend, but we can begin by not being envious of Krishna. And we can see that when Prabhupada would give class, or especially when he would speak to reporters, if someone was extremely aggressive and challenging and just not able to accept one little word that Prabhupada said, we could see that the exchange was usually not very fruitful. And oftentimes, Srila Prabhupada would actually end the exchange. There was no point in this conversation. So not being envious of Krishna, that's our most important qualification, that we are eager to hear. We're not perfect, but we are eager to hear submissively. Hearing means being submissive. Have you ever, if you're a parent and you tell something to your children, you'll say, stop jumping up and down on the couch, right? And a few minutes later, of course, they're still jumping up and down on the couch. And then you likely will be saying, did you guys hear me? I said, stop jumping up and down on the couch. So hearing means there has to be a little bit of submission. And then that's a sign that one is heard. So it should make a difference in our life. 5 main subjects of the Gita, of course, are Ishvara, who is Bhagavan, who is Krishna, the Jiva, Who am I? Prakriti, material nature, time, and the activities of the living entity. His activities as a conditioned soul and as a liberated soul. So who is Bhagavan? I had a friend many years ago. He was actually a Christian monk. He is a Christian monk. And we were talking about God. And he knew a little bit of something about, Hindu philosophy. And he kept referring to God as Vishnu. And I was pointing out to him, I was repeating to him a few verses of Brahma Samhita that I know. And the Brahma Samhita actually begins in this way. Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Krishna is the cause of Vishnu. Krishna is the cause of all causes. That little cowherd boy, Krishna. He is the primal cause, and he is the very form of eternal being, knowledge, and bliss. And we also studied the different realizations that we can have of Krishna. One was impersonal Brahman realization. Well, we realize Krishna's all-pervading presence. This is his Sat feature. We read about Paramatma realization, eternal knowledge realization. Krishna is in the heart of every living entity, not every human being, every living entity. And we need to connect with Krishna in the heart. Reading Bhagavad-Gita is actually connecting with Krishna in the heart. And then finally, there is the complete realization of Bhagavan, of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, which actually is the realization of Krishna in his Ananda, his eternal feature of pleasure. Satchit Ananda, being, knowledge, and bliss. Krishna actually is the very form of eternal being, knowledge, and bliss. When we see a picture of Krishna, we should meditate on that. Krishna is that very form of eternal being, knowledge, and bliss. Then we studied about the jiva. The jiva is us. It's every living entity. In this picture, we don't have pictures of the little insects and abemas, but they're there. And we studied about how every living entity is an eternal individual soul with a minute form of independence. That's the difference between us and Bhagavan. We are also meant to be eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But we are so in a minute way. And the sense of having an existence separate from Krishna is called illusion. The Sanskrit word for this is Maya. You'll hear that a lot in Krishna consciousness. Prabhu, this is Maya. Prabhu, you have to get out of Maya. Illusion. The impersonalist will think that Maya means that this is not real, this is not real. He's in that mode of deciding that everything around him is not real. It doesn't exist. But the devotee doesn't think like that. It exists. It's all part of Krishna's energy. But as long as we're forgetting that connection with Krishna, it's called illusion. For the pure devotee, there is no illusion. Even in the material world, there's no Maya. There's only Krishna. And we talked about our constitutional position as servant, our Sanatana Dharma, our Sanatana Dharma. Whether we are serving the material energy or serving Krishna in his spiritual energy, we are always serving. That's always there. So this is another very important realization that we should keep in our hearts at every moment of the day. Sanatana Dharma, very important. Prakriti, the jiva and material nature, or Prakriti, is always subordinate, predominated by the Supreme Lord. We learned that. Jiva in the material world identifies with the inferior nature. Thus, the jiva experiences being separate from Krishna, when in fact the jiva is never separate. We actually talked about that a minute ago when we were talking about Krishna as Bhagavan, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because this happens a lot. Why? Because these topics are actually completely intertwined. Because everything is Krishna. Everything ultimately comes down to Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya appeared in Navadvip in Mayapur 500 years ago, he didn't manifest his opulence as Krishna. He didn't manifest it only to very, very few. And even as a young man, he was known as a scholar and a teacher. And then finally, when he became a little older, he took initiation from his spiritual master. Yes, even Krishna took initiation from his spiritual master. And after that, he continued to teach, but he would relate everything to Krishna, because nothing is separate from Krishna. So whatever he was teaching, it was all related to Krishna. Very interesting to appreciate and understand that. And we should be doing that as much as we can. Actually, Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita teaches us this by saying, I am the taste of water, I am of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring, of months, I am October and November. Of women, I am fame, fortune, all of these things. I am all devouring death. So many ways that we can experience Krishna in the material world. I was actually just reading in Srimad Bhagavatam a verse, and the verse was saying how Prabhupada was talking in the verse how Krishna is the taste of water. Krishna is the taste of water. So that's not just a beautiful image. Prabhupada was saying actually that because Krishna is the taste of water, and water is that which quenches our thirst, we should understand that only Krishna can actually quench our thirst. So when everything in the material world can remind us of Krishna. When the jiva identifies with material nature, he or she is controlled by the modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. I like these pictures because they're very modern picture of the modes of material nature. Goodness, where a person is acting according to instruction, spiritual instruction. He does in moderation. Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita, yoga is not for one who eats too much or too little, sleeps too much or too little. Passion. passion is very obvious, isn't it? We do things very without giving too much consideration, especially spiritual consideration of the result of our actions. And ignorance, well, ignorance is, an ignorant person doesn't know anything about how to act or not to act. He does everything in a very completely foolish way, and therefore he's always in complete danger, both materially and spiritually. These modes of material nature, we should be familiar with them, and they are described in Bhagavad-Gita. We should be familiar and we should be able to identify which mode of material nature we're in, because none of us are purely in any of these three modes. Most of us are predominantly in one mode or another, and we should be able to identify. That's part of the process of becoming disentangled. Krishna says, of subduers, I am time. The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. There is no getting away from time. The most powerful person in the world and the most insignificant amoeba or virus is subject to time, to the control of time. There will be birth and there will be death. So Krishna says, of time I am. Krishna is time. We want to see Krishna. We can experience Krishna directly as time. And then we studied the activities of the living entity which bind to material consciousness and which liberate. It is indeed impossible. I'm going to come back to this purport. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. It's impossible for the living being to not be active. Even breathing. There are people who say, I won't perform any activity. You can't help it. Breathing is an activity. And breathing involves the living entity in karma. Why? Because he's breathing in germs and microbes and whatever, and he's breathing out. So it's impossible. There are people who are Jain. I don't know too much about the Jain religion, but many of them walk around without a mask because they want to kill as few living entities as possible. But ultimately, some will be killed. So it's impossible to give up activity. It's the nature of the material world. So therefore, the only way out is the next sentence. Therefore, it is said that he who renounces the fruits of action is one who has truly renounced. A person in Krishna consciousness is acting in knowledge of his relationship with Krishna and is always liberated. And therefore, he does not have to enjoy or suffer the results of his acts after death. So in a way that can be discouraging because we can think, well, I'm not fully Krishna conscious. There's no hope for me. Oh, there always is hope. Because to the extent that we are remembering Krishna and that we are acting in knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, we are becoming purified. When we chant Hare Krishna, when we read Bhagavad-Gita, when we see the sunset and we remember how every beautiful thing in Krishna's creation is Krishna. When we take care of our families in a proper way in Krishna consciousness, when we remind our families about Krishna, sometimes reminding our families we can't even preach. Sometimes all we can do is give a little prasadam. Whatever. A devotee should always be looking for a way to remember Krishna and appreciate when someone reminds them of Krishna. These are the activities which will liberate from material consciousness and ultimately from material world. So when we talk about these activities which liberate, we are very specific about this in Krishna consciousness. This is not a wishy-washy kind of thing. We have the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam. Those 2 are most important. Prabhupada says the beginning of spiritual life is Shravanam, Kirtanam. And that will lead to Smaranam. It will lead to remembering Krishna. The more we hear and chant, the more we will remember. There's actually a direct relationship with Krishna, with remembering Krishna. Padasevanam. Padasevanam means service. Whenever I see the word Padasevanam now, I remember when I was at Mayapur Goshala a few years ago. We had a dog there, and he just came to the Goshala one day on his own, just showed up, and he never left. And we called him Padasevanam. We called him Padasevanam because he was always serving. He was a dog, but he was always serving. He would, when the cows were coming in and out, he was there to make sure that they were doing it properly. Sometimes one of the workers would leave a gate open and the cows would start wandering out here and there. And Padasevanam would start barking and talking, telling us, oh, Padasevanam is disturbed. What's going on? And so he was always serving the devotees. And he was always with the devotees. You always found Padasevana at I don't know how many times I came out of my office and Padasevana would be there. And Padasevana also loved to serve by taking prasadam. Padasevana was always eager for prasadam. So Padasevana, I should learn from Padasevana. We should all learn from him. Archanam is a way of service where we worship the deity. We can go to the temple and worship the deity. We can have a picture of Krishna. We can worship Krishna in our heart. All 3 are completely valid. But Srila Prabhupada always reminds us that for a conditioned soul to go to the temple and offer a little service to the deity is very important, is a very important process of Krishna consciousness. Vandanam. Vandanam means offering prayers. Offering prayers, very important. Prayers from our heart, prayers from the scriptures that can actually teach our heart how we should pray. Dasyam, service, whatever service we can render. Sakyam, making friends first with the devotees. As conditioned souls, how can we make friends with Krishna? Very difficult. But we can make friends with devotees. What does friend mean? Friend means that I help you in your time of need. Friend means that I share the best of what I have with you. Friend means that if my heart is troubled, I reveal my heart. And a friend means that when my friend is troubled, I listen to my friend. And finally, Atma Nivedanam. Atmanivedanam means surrendering everything. Just doing all of those activities plus surrendering our heart. So every day we should look at this list and we should think, okay, have I done any of these today? Oh, I did. Okay, very nice. Tomorrow, I'm going to also do Vandanam. I'm going to offer a prayer to Krishna before I chant japa. I'm not just going to sit down and chant. I'm going to offer a prayer to Krishna. I'm going to ask him to help. So like that, every day we should be looking to execute one, two, three, four, five, all of these processes of devotional service. And in that way, we can stay high forever. Srila Prabhupada is so merciful. He came to teach in Kali Yuga to bring all of the worst elements of society who only wanted to get high and forget about Krishna. He taught us that if you really want to stay high, remember Krishna. And then you don't ever, ever have to be miserable again. So I will stop there. And now it's your turn. Oh, Ramesh is here. Good. Haribo, Ramesh.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Haribo. So, Ramesh, because you were the last to come, I'm going to ask you to be the first to share realization. Anything.
So yeah, these classes are very wonderful, and as we are discussing about the jiva, and it's very clearly we discussed, and all the devotees who gave class are indicated about jivas. So it's very clear picture now that how jiva's position with Krishna, and how we are part and parcel of Krishna, and how we are acting here, and how can we surrender to the Krishna, and we can get freedom from this material world. So yeah, that's my point. I would like to make the point about jiva, and yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. Thank you very much. Ghosh Thakur Prabhu, you're our senior Vaishnav here. So we depend on your realization.
You can't even surprise there. I was playing any response, but
it's very dark. We can't see you.
I don't know how to get on it.
Oh well. Okay, well, just speak. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I very much like your presentation because it's very nicely organized with pictures and paragraphs, different things. Because we need that. We need some direction, and we need some order. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. It's spiritual life presented in a scientific way with systematic explanation. So I very much like that kind of presentation. So you're asking for realization? Well, one realization is Krishna consciousness is very gradual, and we have to go step by step, one after another. We cannot jump over or think we are ahead when we're not. Regardless of where we are, because sometimes we compare ourselves to other people and we see, oh, this person is much more advanced than I am, so I feel bad about myself. But that's not the point. The point is to figure out where we are spiritually, what level, and then from that level, we act properly so as to make the next step, because that's the only way we're going to make advancements. Right? What is the next step for us, for me particularly? So that's one point. I think I'll leave room for somebody else to make a comment right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Ghosh Thakur Prabhu. What you said is actually so important, that this is a lifetime process. And for most of us, it will be gradual. And it's important to go step by step. And we should not become discouraged, because becoming discouraged is really the biggest Maya. We can get in all kinds of Maya, but becoming discouraged is the biggest Maya, because that will lead to giving up the process. So that we have to really be careful of. And you said how sometimes we see someone more advanced than us and we get a little bit envious, you know, and but that happens. That's our human nature. That's our fallen nature. But Prabhupada actually gives a very good way of dovetailing that. If someone is more advanced than us, then we can dovetail being envious by seeking their association. Because in Krishna consciousness, we are told we should seek the association of those devotees who are more advanced than us. So the minute we feel that, then we should know, oh, actually, I should be seeking that person's association. So,
Thank you.
should I name somebody or just who is next? Anu and Sanjeev, come on.
Well, we were given our first Bhagavad Gita 20 years back in a bus going to Vancouver. And all these years we've been making an effort to read. And the more we read, the more we realize we don't know much. So after 20 years, we got the opportunity to enroll ourselves in this class, and we consider ourselves very fortunate for that. My reflection is that what resonates and stays with me is the two birds. One is the doer, and one is who's witnessing. And that is my guiding light as to how I perform my actions. I kind of always feel that Krishna is witnessing. So we must kind of make an effort consciously, to make choices that not adversely affect other people around us. And it's a struggle in this material world, because some choices we want to make, and we know Krishna is witnessing them, and we do struggle with that. But I realized eventually everything works out. So I'm just there in my life, trying to consciously make some choices.
That's really wonderful, Anu. Thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, you're remembering that Krishna is witnessing. So you're never alone.
Yeah.
So you're never alone. Devotee is never lonely. Even when we are lonely, we can remember that Krishna is there. He's witnessing. So, thank you.
I just want to make I just want to make a little notation on Prabhu Ghosh Thakur's remarks, and I think that's very resonating when you associate yourself with someone ahead in this path. Sometimes it just feels you feel a little bit less of yourself, and thank you for putting such a good note on that as to how one should see that situation. For me, I think I am a victim of where I am sometimes finding more entangled in this material world than one should be, and it's nothing but painful. But still, somehow you still feel entangled, and every time I make an effort or find myself where I am submitting myself, or I am letting go, and I feel like I feel so much better. So I say that's where I should belong, and the effort is ongoing, but the progress is slow.
Don't give up. That's the important thing.
Thank you.
Who would like to speak next?
I can speak next.
Okay.
I kind of had like 3 different realizations, and one of the big ones for me was Sanatana Dharma. I had never heard of that concept before. I'd heard of Dharma in different formats and different ways, and it makes so much sense that like we are eternally in servitude. And when I started paying attention to this, you see it everywhere. You see it in every interaction, and you especially see it in little children, how they so willingly want to serve, you know what I mean? And like feed their parents or help their parents. And I think in their pure little souls, right away, we just have this natural want. And so that was a really neat and interesting revelation for me. And I also thought a lot about the modes of nature. Since we've been talking about them, I notice myself. I'm trying to notice myself and in which modes I'm operating in, and how even if I think I'm doing something good, sometimes I'm doing it in a mode of passion, or just kind of being more aware of my intentions or consciousness. And we all kind of talked about how it can be a little bit discouraging sometimes if we're not as good on the path as we want it to be. So I really liked in Bhagavad-Gita chapter 6, verse 40, when it says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, son of Partha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. I feel really hopeful when I read this and when I read the purport, because even if we don't do things exactly right, Krishna always sees our intention, and even if we do it wrong, he helps us see what's wrong about it, and he always remembers the good parts. So those are all my realizations.
Thank you, Jade. That was wonderful. That was very, very good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? There's only a couple left now. Raj, your turn.
Hare Krishna. You were talking about Maya initially, you said we will listen lots of this word in ISKCON when you're in ISKCON, right? Maya. So I was thinking, this is another virus that we have, and the only medicine for this virus, Prabhupada invented. You know, that 16 injections of Harinam.
Yes.
And you know what is the best time to take that medicine? Around 5 to 7 in the morning.
Yes.
And the Maya will attack you, especially when you're taking Harinam, because she knows he is going to kill me with Harinam. She'll attack you more when you are chanting. Your mind is never there. You know, in 16 rounds, you're chanting. Oh, what about that email? Oh, what about that WhatsApp message? Oh, what about I'm going to do this after, you know, so many things that Maya, you know, just trying to attack you all the time. And the only thing, you know, I think still, because Maya knows we can get rid of her just because of Harinam, so she attacks us all the time. Krishna says that this word is dukhalayam. There is happiness too, but there is dukh all the time. You know, in older times, you know, they were giving this punishment to the people who were being punished. They used to put their head in the water, you know, just to punish them. And when the person was like just about to die, they take his head out, and he comes out and he's happy at that time. So we are like that, you know, we get that much of happiness and we are happy, but we are struggling so much for that happiness. And what I understand is we have to ask mercy from Krishna, you know, like a beggar. You know, if a beggar comes to your house in Mayapur tomorrow morning and say, Vishwadika Dasi, please prepare a pizza and a Coke for me, and you'll say, okay, whatever, go to next door. But you know, if a beggar has to come to our door really in a humble way, saying, oh, I need it, please, I'm hungry, give it to me, we certainly will give it to him, right? So in the same way, I think I need to develop my attitude for chanting, which is not there still, but that is the way I should be. And of course, Prabhupada has explained very well that we have 5 defects. You know, we make mistakes, we forget, we are in illusion, and other 2, I don't remember those ones.
Cheat. We cheat.
Sorry.
We cheat.
We are tendency to cheat, and there is 5th one too. We forget, we cheat, our senses are imperfect. Our senses are not perfect. So yeah, so Krishna is perfect. You know, he's saying you can't remember everything. This is coming from since the time of God's Son. So you know, it's a beautiful thing. You know, we just need to thank Krishna for everything. Everything means everything. Even sitting here all on Zoom, we are using electricity. And electricity is coming from some source which is produced from Krishna ultimately. We are eating something, pasta, rice, wheat. We should completely understand that cannot be made in factories. We can be the biggest scientist of the planet, but we cannot produce that. That is the base of living. So we should thank Krishna in every moment, in every second, but not only there. We should keep that Krishna consciousness in our family life, thinking, okay, my wife, it's a gift of Krishna, how to take care of her. My children, my house, everything that we do, everything around us. That is the only way we can be really Krishna consciousness, right? So yeah, that's my realization. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, you were talking about how during japa, the mind is always even more uncontrolled. But this is, we cannot let that discourage us. Actually, every time we notice that the mind is not focusing on Krishna, then it's our opportunity to focus. We should take these as opportunities to focus and not become negative. There can be a tendency after some time when one realizes how unfocused the mind is. And like Jade was saying, she was saying how she's noticing the modes of material nature, how she's acting in these different modes, sometimes in the mode of passion or ignorance. But even while a person is acting in the mode of passion or ignorance, if he becomes aware, oh, I'm being influenced by the mode of ignorance, that's actually in the mode of goodness, to become aware of that. So gradually, we make progress. This is, as you know, Ghosh Thakur was saying, this is a gradual process. So, thank you, Raj. Corey, what can you share with us?
I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. Like, I was born in the mid-70s, 74. I was raised by not a spiritual family, not religious, not at all. My dad was a bit of a cowboy, and I participated in and excelled at very violent sports in my lifetime: American football, boxing, and I kind of lived my childhood years, my teenage years, my 20s with the old adage of like the devil on your shoulder, and you're supposed to have an angel on the other shoulder, but I had two devils most of my life. And I can't, there's a lot more details than that, but I was gifted, literally hung on my door in 2019. The Bhagavad-Gita showed up, hung on my door, and my wife's Hindustani, we have a temple. I took it and I put it on the temple and I ignored it. 2019 it showed up. So fast forward to November 2020, and me still being not even ignorant. Ignorant would have been a level up for me, for where I had been living up to that point. But we had a huge fight, me and my wife, a huge fight, and I was an absolute monster. And the next day, I don't know what came over me, some sort of realization, and I picked this up. And I opened this book up. I finished this book on January 31st. I moved on to this book. I finished this book. Oh, you can see the picture.
Sri Upanishad.
Yeah,
Yes.
finished that on March 24th. And now I'm on the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this course has been amazing, but you fast forward how I was raised and all that I've gone through, all the bad choices I've made. Fast forward to a week and a half ago, I got to this page in the third canto. I don't know if you can see that picture.
Yes.
I opened the book to that page. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and the tears just flowed out of me like I can't even explain. I don't even know what came over me. And you know, I used to walk around not being a nice person. If there was a bug on the floor, I'd crush the bug, and just doing all sorts of bad choices. So fast forward to today, and I feel like now on my shoulder is Krishna. He's always there. He's reminding me now. I do my japa chants daily. Every day I try to do at least one round. He's there. He's constantly reminding me, hey, look over your shoulder. He's there. I literally talk to the fruit flies in my bathroom and just coax them to go out the window. So I don't want to kill them. So I can't explain the changes. Like if you were to talk to my wife and my kids, they're blown away. They're absolutely blown away by the power that has been brought into me from Krishna. And he's constantly in my mind, in the back of my mind, and I'm trying to keep him there for every single choice I make. I look for not what would Krishna do, but how would he smile at me, or would he give me a look? So I'm just trying to live every moment now with those conscious thoughts, and it's slowly evolving into the person that I kind of always wanted to be, and I'm on the right path, I guess. Thanks to all you guys and to Krishna. It's just, I don't know, it's so profound for me. My life changed so drastically since November 2020. I can't even explain it properly. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. This is so wonderful. And I think what you described, everyone actually that comes to Krishna consciousness, that comes to leading Prabhupada Prabhupada's books has some similar experience. At one point or another, we're all lost in the material world, and to find a way of getting out is so amazing and wonderful, that hearing what you said is actually, it's bringing back when I first came to Krishna consciousness, how absolutely lost I was. I think I remember mentioning it one time. I was sitting with a psychiatrist and telling him how the whole world is, nothing is real. Nothing is real. It's like the worst movie I've ever seen. I actually felt this complete detachment. And then this crazy psychiatrist said, but this is the only reality. And I thought, then there's no point in living. I mean, really. But then shortly after, I came to Krishna consciousness. So we just have to remember that and keep going. Keep going, never become discouraged. So on the topic of keep going, next week, we're going to begin to study Bhagavad-Gita chapter by chapter. So some of us have a lot of time to study, some of us don't. So I encourage all of you, before we study each chapter, that you read through all the verses of that chapter before the class. And there are a couple of verses for each chapter that are recommended that you read the verse and the purport. So if you can do that reading before the class, it will be very, very beneficial. So please, everybody should do that. And if that week was a total disaster and you didn't get any chance to read, or you only read half the chapter, never mind, come to the class and you can read it later. Just be there, keep going, okay? All right, so thank you very much again for everybody for your association. I look forward again next week. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you.
Hare
Anu,
Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Sanjeev,
you.
Corey, thank you so much. You
Thank
inspired
you.
me so much.
Thank you.
Ah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna,
Thank
Hare
you.
Hare.
Bye, everybody.
Haribo, Haribo, Anu.
Haribo.
Haribo, Sanjeev.
Haribo.
Anu.
Nice to see you again.
Good to
Yes,
see you.
the feeling is mutual, but we don't see you somehow.
Pardon?
Now
I
they're
don't know.
saying we cannot travel outside our medical area. So we were all set to come this weekend, but now we can't travel till 24th of May.
Oh,
Yeah.
We had actually plans to come on the weekend of the 1st of May, but we've been looking forward to it for quite some time. But suddenly this news yesterday has been kind of quite sad for us. So
They're saying they'll be checking on the roads.
I probably wants to make mention of something.
oh, I see. Okay. Well, it will happen when Krishna sanctions.
Correct. It's
Right.
interesting you say that, because every time I visit the valley and I hear the devotees mention, if it is meant to be and if Krishna wants it, it'll happen. And that sentence was resonating since yesterday to me. And I said, look, we make all the plans, but till it is meant to be with his will and his desire, once he approves it, only then things will happen.
Of course, that doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing.
Well, true. And you know
Right,
what? That's the
but-
thing.
Right.
It was so motivating to hear this. I forget the name of the gentleman.
Corey.
It's so inspiring, his story. I mean, I was in awe. And I said, you know what? I wish that kind of transformation happens to me.
But I think he's so right, because that crying, oh my God, it is so, it's a beautiful experience also. Earlier, I used to think that, am I depressed or what's wrong with me? You know, these tears just keep rolling. It's like, it's a cry for help. You know, Prabhu,
Yes.
it's a cry for help, uh, like you want to be released from some sort of bondage, but you cannot explain it and you cannot express it. And it's just a cry for help.
Yeah, no, it's so true. In fact, it's kind of quite a coincidence that you mentioned that, because a few times that I have joined the kirtan in the valley at different residences, I have been in tears, and I have actually been trying to um, save my face so that nobody looks at me, and somebody
Yeah.
might be saying like, "What's going on with you?
Why is he
You're a
crying?"
man, you're crying, and what's going on?" And I'm just, because those are some moments in between that I feel like in a total state of submission, and I feel like so much has gone off me in terms of the burden that I'm carrying, and it feels like such something happens, like that I feel that way, and I start crying, right? And I remember one time at Harilila's place, what's the name of the lady? They do the sport in the ship. Leela Marita was actually doing a kirtan, and I was just hysterical.
Howling away.
I was hysterical. I said, "Let me run away from the room."
I know.
So there are those moments, and I think on another note, I think what happens is I do sometimes japa, but not as frequently as I'd like to do. But all those thoughts come to me, like I think it was earlier phrased by what's the name of the gentleman? I'm sorry, I'm bad at names, but and I find personally, my experience in that context has been that I feel like any ill thoughts or any thoughts, when I'm doing that, they get cleaner, they get washed away, in that way. So that's my personal experience in that.
Right.
Yeah.
What was, I didn't hear the last few words. The last two words I didn't hear. I
So
think
what
it
I'm
was
saying is, when I do japa, which is not as frequent as I would probably like to see myself doing, is that I find that any thoughts that come to mind at that time, they get washed, they get cleaned. I feel it's some sort of a mechanism where any thoughts that come to mind actually get cleaner.
That's the effect of the holy name. Of course, we should be chanting and focusing on the holy name,
Right.
but thoughts will come, and because we're chanting the holy name, you're right. Our thoughts will get clean, either at that moment in time, but a lot of times devotees will say, "Oh, when I'm chanting japa, so many thoughts come to mind," and sometimes one thought is so it just keeps coming, and finally I write it down.
And that's why
I make a resolve not to think about it anymore. But then the devotee will find that later on, when he considers that problem or that thought, his whole way of looking at it has become very different. Why? Because the holy name was there. Because he actually sacrificed that thought to chanting the holy name.
right.
So we just, it's we can go on and on describing all the wonderful things that happen when we try to become Krishna conscious. When we try to put Krishna in the center of our lives, whatever our life is, we try to put Krishna in the center. And it's a wonderful.
Ghosh, Prabhu, are you trying to say something? I see his hand.
I'm not very good with a computer. Sometimes I make mistake. I push the wrong button.
That's okay.
But
No problem.
I just want to say I'm happy to see both of you. I hope you come back to the farm soon. Sometimes I can see your lotus face again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo,
All the
Haribo,
best.
Jai
Stay safe.
Haribo,
Haribo.
Haribo.
Oh, you're very
Haribo.
much wanted, Sanjeev and Anu.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure is ours. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Haribo.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hare Krishna.